Good morning, I'm Stuart from Stuart's Gardens in Simonstown. It's a beautiful mid-spring morning, and as you can see, these tomato plants and cucumber plants that I grew from seed some 7 to 8 weeks ago are growing vigorously and now need pruning. Pruning and trellising is an essential activity, particularly for the small gardener who wants to grow tomatoes in an efficient and effective way. What this requires is the changing of the growth habit of these plants, which in the natural environment grow along the ground, to one in which they grow vertically. And pruning and trellising combined is what makes this possible. To explain how and why I do this, I will have to go over the structure and the anatomy of a tomato plant. This is a brandywine orange tomato plant, and when I prune, I focus on 3 main areas. The first is the stem. The stem is the supporting structure of the plant, and in addition to this, it carries the little tubules which conduct both nutrients and water from the roots within the soil. The second area are these structures, which grow between the leaves and the stem, and these are called suckers, and each sucker can grow into an individual tomato plant of the same size as the parent. In the natural state, the tomato plant grows along the ground, and these suckers, which have tiny hairs, each of which can grow into a root, can easily establish itself as the plant grows. So as the plant grows, you will have a number of plants growing from the main stem, can branch out in many directions, and each of them will then set down its own root system, which means that this huge sprawling plant can get sufficient water and nutrients from the ground, from the soil. However, the gardener grows plants vertically, and if each sucker grows into a branch that is equivalent to the main stem, a huge plant will be produced, and the single rooting system of the main stem will be insufficient to supply the nutrients for the whole plant, and the fruit produced will be small. For this reason, I cut off the suckers, leaving maybe one, but usually none, and I trellis the single stem up the trellis. The third component that I am concerned about when I prune are the leaves. The leaves are these structures which grow from the main stem and have the sucker between them and the stem, are compound in nature and have a varying number of leaflets. Leaves photosynthesize and capture the sun's energy, which drives the growing and other activities of the plant. In addition, leaves have a number of pores called stomata, which allow the interaction and flow of gases like oxygen and carbon dioxide into and out of the plant, and that is an essential process. And for this reason, I frequently prune leaves if, as in this case, the environment around the plant is blocked, which does not allow the circulation of air around the plant. And in such cases, it's necessary to prune the leaves. One has to remember that one grows plants for the tomatoes, for the fruit, and not the leaves. And leaves in excess also take away nutrients and water from the tomato fruit. The fourth part of the plant that one has to take into account and be aware of is the truss, which holds the reproductive part of the plant. It holds the buds, the flowers, and the fruit. This plant is hermaphrodite. In other words, it contains both the male and the female components of the plant in a single flower. And for this reason, it is wind pollinated. As you can see today, the wind is blowing, and that distributes the pollen onto the stigma, which allows fertilization to take place and fruits to be formed. Now let's get on with the pruning of the plant. This particular set of vicious looking scissors is what I use for pruning. The first thing is to sterilize the plants. I've sterilized these in hot soapy water. You can also use alcohol. You can see that this plant is very busy. There's lots of leaves, there's lots of suckers, and there's a few buds which are looking good. So the first thing to do is to start pruning the lower part of the plant, and the reason you start at the bottom is that when there is water as part of rain or irrigation, if there's splashes of this from the soil onto the lower leaves, this can produce disease. So the first thing to do is to start pruning the lower section of the plant. This is a leaf which I'm going to take off. Over here we have a sucker and a leaf. This is part of probably the cotyledonous leaf. So let's keep going. I'm going to take this one off because it's low. Now we have a decision to make. Here we can see that there is a sucker which has grown quite big, and then there's another one which has got a number of buds, all of which will soon produce flowers, etc. So what I'm going to do is look at this one and this one, compare them. This one doesn't have any growth, so I'm going to take off this sucker. Now that plant looks a lot leaner and a lot cleaner. Don't worry too much about the leaves. It looks like I've taken off too many leaves, but I haven't. It's amazing how little photosynthesis is required to keep this plant going at this stage. Very soon there will be more growth, lots of growth here, and the plant will continue its growth upwards and onwards towards producing beautiful fruit. We now come to the cucumber plants. They look very different. They're also vigorous and very fast growing plants, and they're very different to the tomato plant, particularly because they have two different types of flowers. They have both a male flower and a female flower. So here one can easily lose control of cucumbers. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take off this branch, and just like with the tomatoes, I'm going to cut off the lower branches and leaves of the plant. You can see that there are lots of flowers down the bottom, but I'm going to be brave and I'm going to take them all off at this stage. There's going to be plenty more when the plant grows. I'll take this off, and I'm going to take the leaves off, and I'll take this one off too. Yeah, where is it going? Make sure it's not the main stem. Yep, that was the main stem, so I better be careful. I'll take off this one, I'll take off this one, and now we have the main stem going up quite nicely. There's a leaf here, and over here is a sucker that I'll take. This is a take off. Here's a lower leaf that I'll take off. This one is clinging on with its tendrils. I'll remove the tendrils, free them off, and now we have a cleaner looking plant. Isn't that a handsome looking cucumber plant? Gardeners use the combination of trellising and pruning to convert ground level scrambling plants to vertically growing plants to manage the control of growth and maximize the yield. It will be helpful to go through the structure and anatomy of a cucumber plant to understand the pruning process. Cucumber plants have a main stem. They have leaves. They have flowers. And between the stem and the flower are growing points. And in addition, there can also be a number of flowers growing from the node. The plant also has tendrils which grab onto anything, but they can be helpful if they grab onto the trellis to help support the plant. But it is of no consequence to the plant if you remove them. There are two types of flowers. There is the female flower, which has baby fruit or an ovary, and a male flower, which doesn't have the ovary and comes directly out of the node. The male flower produces pollen, which then can fertilize the plant, if there's a pollinator, by taking the pollen and putting it on the stigma of the female plant. Pollinators are needed, which are usually bees, and the plant can also be pollinated using a hand-pollinated method, which I will show you at some stage. So there are the three newly pruned cucumber plants, all looking very smart. If you've enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing, because this is an evidence-based program, and I record the methods I use and the outcomes, be they good or bad. This is the second day of the early pruning of the cucumber and tomato plants. As you can see, they all look less cluttered and they look healthy and strong. Ever many challenges lie ahead, such as changes in climate, from hot to cold, wind, pests, nutrition, water, and it's the gardener's job to make sure that these challenges are met. So a lot lies ahead of us in the next 6 to 9 months. However, it's time to say goodbye on this beautiful spring day in Simonstown. I look forward to sharing with you soon.